Canada meant to distract and lie. Criminals we elect, enslave your life through work to grave. Become a part of a change for future need. Feel that you God you fear, know the stuff you hear from those who claim to speak for them. But you know it's not true, so what do you do?
The Reverend Ron Ministries podcast. We'd like to thank you for joining us this episode. My name is Ron. I go by Reverend Ron. We have Lisa Carter on the show tonight. She's an organizer, activist, for an advocate for homeless, and I happen to know her for some political activities we were involved with. But after that kind of was over with, we decided to partner because we both have very common interests. And one of those common interests is how, which is the homeless issue, right? So I would like to introduce my first guest, Lisa Carter. She is now sponsoring a campaign called Socks and Sandwiches, and basically it is being conducted in a small little environment in the Burien area. I'll let her describe that here in just a second. I do know the foundation has a Facebook page, so I encourage everybody, after she gives us a little bit more information, to go to the Facebook page, check it out, and see if you can help support the cause some way or another. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Lisa Carter from the Burien area, and she's also the secretary of the Collins-Ashworth Foundation. Lisa, how you doing?
Hi, Ron. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, so we're doing Socks and Sandwiches. Here is it's a small drive, but it basically started from my desire to do something to help alleviate the suffering of the homeless. There's an extensive population of homeless people here in this area. I live in South King County, like you said, in Burien. And right outside of Burien is a little neighborhood called White Center. Many people may have known that from years ago. It was called Rat Center, and it was referring to the skaters, to the rolling rink people, and it became famous probably in the 60s and 70s for its roller rink derby girls. I can't remember what they're called, but
are you talking about Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The roller rink. Are you talking about the what do you call them, Los Angeles Thunderbirds?
No, I'm talking about how the whole thing that was going on in the 70s where the girls would roller skate and they'd beat each other up as they're rolling around in the roller rink. And the competition is roller derby, yeah. Yeah, it started in White Center, and they were called the Rats, and so it was Rat Center. But nowadays, White Center has has become very poor, and most of the population is impoverished. Many of the businesses have left the area, and the homeless population has grown extensively in that area. And it's just a hop, skip, and a jump outside of Burien.
So you've been there for a while? I mean, you've been in Burien for a while. You've seen the transformation from nice area to down area to homeless encampments, stuff like that?
No, I've only seen it. I've seen it getting worse, but I've always known it as a poor area. I moved into Washington in 2009, so it was already impoverished, and it's just gotten worse, continuously worse. It's now in the middle of a gentrification process. It's beginning, And so many of the houses are being ripped down and new building complexes are being built.
Can you explain it to our folks? And then I'm going to ask you another question. Go ahead. Let's start with the gentrification of a neighborhood. Go ahead.
That's basically a process where corporations or land is basically bought up, and the people who are living there, whether they're renters or owners, are forced to leave their neighborhoods, and everything is torn down and new buildings are built, new housing complexes are built, and they're up, they're modern day, modern facilities, and they basically, the rent triples most of the time, the rent just skyrockets from there, and all of the people who were originally living there are no longer able to afford the rent, so they are forced to the streets or some other sort of living arrangements, and the neighborhood is supposed to be getting better or looks nicer, but basically all the people who live there they have nowhere to live, so they have to leave. So it's basically kicking out the poorer people who live there, and then improving the neighborhood, and then bringing in a higher renting.
Right. It's how rich people take over poor neighborhoods and take the wealth out of the poor neighborhoods and steal from the poor.
Right. It's a lot like privatizing prisons. It's the same kind of an idea in that sense that
somehow you got interested in the homeless plight. What started your interest in that? To trying to help out your fellow man like that?
Both of my children were born in California, and most of my life I lived in a small town in California called Lake Tahoe. Then as the financial crisis of 2008 hit, it coupled up with me divorcing my husband, and it was like at the same time. So I decided the town of Lake Tahoe's economic system just was basically plummeting, and there were no jobs. It was harder and harder for me to rent. And for a multitude of reasons, I felt like it was time for me to leave. So I took my 2 children, and I had $3,000, and I moved to Seattle. And I had
$3,000 in Seattle don't go far.
No, and it was quite an eye opener for me, because I ended up living in shelters with my children, and then getting a grant for 1 year. It's called Rapid Rehousing Grant, and I was, the idea was to house the family with this and help them pay 75% of their rent, and then help them get a job. And I didn't have very many skills, really. And so the jobs that I was able to get, I don't think I had very much vision either, but the jobs that I got were very ineffective, really. And so at the end of that year, I continued to struggle. And I was basically working at the stadiums at the time. And so on the off season of baseball, we had no income. And I don't know. I just, I guess I lost faith and I lost hope, and I just became, I feel like, hindsight, at the time I felt like there were no options for me. And I just my daughter was 18 at that point, and my son was 14. And I felt like, she got accepted to the University of Washington. And so I sent my son to live with some family in North Carolina, and I sent Isabella to college, and I basically started living on the streets. And at first I thought it was going to be like a temporary situation, and it just spiraled into a lifestyle. And I was out there for almost 5 years.
Oh my God. How much of that how much of that was because I know sometimes you stay there because it's now your home. But you don't want it to be, but it's just, now it is. But how much of that
Right, it's
would
perspective.
you say you had a choice to leave? I don't know what the word I would say. My cousin was in and out of homelessness. Sometimes she wanted to be homeless. It wasn't always about no choices, but she had mental illness also. So I'm not sure how much she gave it that much thought. My question to you, I guess I'm asking, did you choose to stay on the streets just because sometimes there was just nowhere else to go? And how much of that 5 years was that, do you think? And I'm not even sure that makes any sense, to be honest, that question.
Yeah, when you're out there, you kind of make what you assume is a temporary choice, which becomes a chosen route, or a route that just becomes kind of like a spiraling circle that you really can't perceive any way out of. And I know, from looking back on it, and from the perspective of where I'm at now, I know I could have done different things, and I know I could have pulled myself out of that. And in fact, I probably didn't have to even go that far out there. But it was more of like an emotional letting myself down, just letting everything go, and like I felt like I was really waiting for the end. I was waiting for the end of my life, and I really thought that any minute now, something would either change or I would die. And I was just sort of waiting for that. And
so everybody, when they come to that point of life, right, when I understand you're just kind of giving up. Like you just said, I'm waiting for them. But there was something that happened, a spark of hope that made you say,
I got
something
more and
happened. I don't know. What was that thing for you?
And
I'm going to call it a why, where you could have died, or something happened, you went left instead of right.
Yeah. And as I was out there, many people were always asking me how come I was out there. And many people were telling me that, that's not, it would either be just regular people that would have a conversation with me and tell me I shouldn't be out there, or other homeless people would ask me why in the hell I was out there, and
I don't know. Why are you out here, right? We're here.
There was also the element of my children and my other extended family who were angry at me for making those choices, angry at me for the situation. And so they, it's kind of like you don't want to hang on to a sinking ship. You kind of distance yourself from that person. And I felt them all distancing themselves from me, and they were critical, as you perceive that. And at the time, they were angry because who are you angry at when, a loved one is self-destructing, right? You get mad at the loved one because they're hurting themselves. And so it's kind of like a crazy, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but
I think
as they became more angry with me.
Yeah, I think self-preservation overtakes the trying to help somebody, because at some point you
exactly.
Where you're on the street, so I'm going to consider you an expert in the next question I'm going to ask you. Okay. So let's say out of 100 homeless people for a month that you met, I'm just making this up, okay? I'm trying to put an analogy together. How many do you think were out there because of some type of mental disorder, number one, some kind of substance abuse issue, be it drugs or alcohol, or I'll even throw in gambling on that one. And then how many were out there, the vets, how many do you think were veterans out there? United States, military veterans.
The truth is that everybody had their own heartbreak story. It's really a situation of having a broken heart. And when you have a broken heart, you lose hope, and you lose connections. And the dirtier and the more embedded in the homeless situation you get, the more you feel like there's no way out. And so the loneliness of it all, and the staggering, really it's loneliness, and it's just this disbelief of how the hell did I get out here, that drives you insane. And so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is homelessness in itself causes insanity. And in order to stay, it's like, where are you going to sleep when you're outside? What are you going to do? And you don't have anywhere to go. So at night, you better walk. And you better walk all night long. And the best friend of any, the way you choose to do that usually wraps up in drugs. Either you take heroin and you fall asleep somewhere, or you take some meth and you walk yourself, or you get drunk and you throw things and you complain and you talk to yourself. It's like.
So I want to share a story with you. I was out one day, and this lady with a cart, she was obviously homeless, and she had a cart, and she was laying on the grass on this Dairy Queen. And I'm like, no one's bothering her. So I went up to her and I go, ma'am, are you okay? You need some help? And she goes, no, I'm fine. I go, have you eaten? She goes, no. I go, let's go eat a burger, okay? So we were eating, and she had money. She just couldn't get to the Hotel 6. They get money sometimes. It's not enough to get a house, There's Social Security and welfare that, you need $25,000 million to get into a damn rental for $1,500 a month. We had some dinner, and I drove her over to her, the Motel 6, where she was able to stay. And I said, could I videotape you? I would love to share your story on my website for the foundation, for the Homeless Foundation. And I'm going to say it real quick. I said, are you a drunk? She goes, no, I really don't drink, but at night when I'm freezing, I drink because it keeps me warm. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Everyone thinks because you got a bottle in your hand, you're a drunk. No one takes the time. You're holding a sign on a corner saying you're hungry, you need some cash, whatever it is. And they're all just driving by, assuming stereotypes. And that's what pisses me off the most. Everyone have their idea of what's going on, but when was the last time any of these clowns ever stopped and try to buy dinner for somebody, or just give them a couple bucks and ask, how you doing today? Seriously, how are you doing? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but here, you're doing a campaign now called Socks and Sandwiches, so I'm going to set it up for you, okay? It's in Burien. The ideology is to gain education and awareness of the homeless plight, and I believe what I understand is people are always donating coats and jeans and shirts and all that stuff, but the folks out there on the streets, they need socks, and no one ever donates socks, or at least not new socks. And it really feels good on your feet. So there's a campaign to get money and to buy some socks and throw some new socks into a bag, and with a couple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And we chose those because you can eat it now, or you can eat it a couple hours from now, and it's not perishable. And then if we can get on the local food banks to help us out, we'll get some fruits and vegetables and throw in the bag also, and some hand cleaner. And, it's just the start of an idea. Threw a lot of information out there, but, you put the human side of all that information I just threw out there.
I was out there. I had food stamps so I could eat. But, you have to buy pre-made food and stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but one of my, I was always craving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It was just, it was like that go-to of what I knew. I had made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches thousands of times for my children, and thousands of times, we eat that for lunch. And it was just a sense of home, I guess, was the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but also the protein from the peanut butter, I really think. And the sugar helps, but also the socks. Nobody thinks about how you walk all night long outside and your feet sweat, your feet blister, your feet bleed, but also there's puddles and there's, just all kinds of stuff. And socks are your only protection, and no matter where I went, socks were never available for me. And so I always, in your mind, how you sometimes just stand around fantasizing about what would be the perfect solution. It was always a peanut butter sandwich and some socks. was in my mind as what I needed. And I always just told myself that was, or why can't I get that? Really, I didn't think anybody needed to give me anything. I just thought, why can't I attain those things, and then somehow, oh, well, it was a thought that I carried with me, and things happened. It somehow just came into fruition. And I met you with Collins-Ashworth Foundation, and it was
I just need some of that Lisa don't give a fuck attitude, right? You're on a mission. Get out of my jump on board or get out of the fucking way, man. I'm going through one way or the other. Okay. Anyway, okay. So, where do we go? Give me a question to ask you. Where are we at?
My position with Collins-Ashworth Foundation as a secretary has brought me a lot of hope. I really believe in the statement of becoming the change that you want to see. And I feel like this nonprofit is the avenue towards achieving those sort of goals. I feel it's brought me a lot of self-confidence and hope.
That's good. And by the way, I'm going to put a call out there for help.
So let's see.
I have a campaign going too, and I got to talk about. I have raised zero money of my 100,000.
You want 100,000?
This is the main.
I like you, Ron. You're like, go big.
Go big. Yeah, don't ask for. No, this would be like the main one. So we were talking about socks and sandwiches, on how they kind of. The socks, because no one ever gives socks, but the sandwiches kind of a little comfort food on the streets, and it was also nutritious. The peanut butter and the sugar and the fact that it wasn't so perishable. So anyway, go ahead and finish what you were talking about. Thank you for letting me catch us up there.
I guess I was gonna, talk about the community. I think that in order to be an advocate for the homeless, in order to really enact change in any community, you need to work with other allies, and one of the allies that we work with Socks and Sandwiches, is the Body of Christ Church in White Center. It's a very small church, and the congregation is basically homeless men who were homeless and addicted to drugs, who have come in to the church, and they live in the church. So they're disciples is basically what they call it. But they're at that church center. It's called Body of Christ. They serve up a hot meal for the community. That's in White Center. They serve up a hot meal for the community every single day at 12 o'clock. And people come in and they eat. And so they have agreed to let us come in and prepare our sandwiches using their kitchen. And so then we prepare our sandwiches before we go out. And we usually end up handing out some of our sandwiches and some of the socks to the men who come for the hot meals. But there are many, many people who are homeless who don't venture out to get the hot meal. There are many people in encampments and living under bridges who are just not leaving their spots, and they just, either it's because they're so depressed, or it's because they're overwhelmed, or it's maybe they don't know. But basically what we do is we take the food to where they are. We take the sandwiches to where they are. But it's good to have an ally like the White Center Church, Body of Christ, because it helps. they bring us hope, and we bring them hope.
So what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, thank you for your patience. Lisa's nervous. This is the first time she's ever been talking like this. But she's also a co-host in training, so this won't be the last time you hear her. So keep your ears out. She's doing a great job, and thank you very much. But what I wanted to let the listeners know is the Body of Christ, all of these links for the GoFundMe, Socks and Sandwich campaigns, they will all be linked in the description part of this podcast. So if you're waiting for us to, we'll throw in some information during our discussion, but all that information will be in the context. So just when you're done listening, it's actually going to be in writing. Press the buttons at the bottom in the context, so you won't miss anything. But I do encourage you to go visit the Facebook page of the Body of Christ. And after Lisa and I get discussing tonight, I'm actually going to have a part 2 of this discussion. I'm going to talk about what is the Collins-Ashworth Foundation, what our mission was, and what we're changing it to be. And how Lisa discussed networking with the Body of Christ and what we're doing, what she's doing. And my position is this. If you're not solving the problem, you are the problem. It's no more middle ground, ladies and gentlemen. The boat is sinking. The boat is getting water.
Yeah.
If people won't start taking their little tiny cups and start throwing the water out, everybody, then we're going to sink. So we either survive together or we sink together. But here's the thing. If some of us are in water out and some of us are just riding along while the other ones do all the work, we need to identify those fools. And I feel we will. Because they've been riding on whatever they've been riding on for too long. And, and most of them, in my opinion, are hiding behind some belief system that really just allows them to do such. So anyway, that's a different show. Lisa, I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes. Say what you want. And by the way, I'm always I swear on this show. So if you happen to do so, don't worry about it. Although I don't think I've ever heard you swear, have I? Yeah, maybe an F word, an F bomb.
I did swear earlier. Yeah. I really think that it is important to be. I think we all honestly want to see a change. I don't think there are anybody out there who feels heartless or feels like they're not trying to make the world better in some way. What the issue is what does that mean? Are we working to make the world a better place for ourselves and our children? Or are we working to make the world a better place for all of mankind and for all of humanity from all the way into the future? One of the thoughts that continuously drives me, a thought that haunts me, is my daughter, who is 26, refuses to have children. She won't bring children into this world, into the conditions that we're in. We are facing economic problems, we are facing social issues, and we are facing environmental crisis. So in order for our next generation to feel like they have a right in this, to feel like they have something vested in our future, we all need to work together to hope to change the projection of where we're going. One other point that I'd like to make is that I think we all have a desire to make a change. We just don't know how.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Lisa for coming up to our show. She was very informative. She gave us a lot of information about just being on the streets. That's always nice to hear from the actual people who actually were there versus people on TV describing something they never even experienced in their lives. That's what we do here at the Reverend Ron Ministries podcast. We bring you real people, real stories. You decide if it's bullshit or not. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to go in detail, somewhat detail anyway, about the new mission of the Collins-Ashworth Foundation and kind of how we're proceeding forward and what you can do to help us and help your environment. When I say environment, I'm talking about your sphere of influence. So anyway, and stand by. We'll be right back with the Reverend Ron Ministries podcast. Welcome back to the Reverend Ron Ministries podcast. I'm Reverend Ron. When we started the Collins-Ashworth Foundation, our mission was to house the homeless. And we had started a small thrift store, and then we had to close it. It was hard to get people to participate, and it was hard to make enough money to keep things moving along. So we had to go back and reevaluate what we wanted to do and kind of what we learned and that kind of stuff. So one thing I realized is when you have a small profit and you're actually on the ground, boots are on the ground, serving up meals, providing shelter, clothing, whatever it is you're doing to help folks. Big organizations have resources to apply for government and big corporate grants. Small organizations do not. We're changing the mission a little bit where we become more of a fundraising organization, and we'll distribute to organizations that we recognize as either 501c3 organizations that have missions in alliance with ours with homelessness, low income, and formalized groups that are actively conducting business in the interest of homeless. Part of the groups we'll be working with is secular, and some of the groups we'll be working with are religious groups. The religious groups, a good example of that would be the organization we're working with now. And it is a religious organization, but it's a formal group. They're serving up lunches every day to people who need it. And I consider them, worthy of our assistance. Now, who am I to determine that? Well, I'm just a guy, and we're going to have to come up with some details on how we're going to proceed forward. But what I see happening is people who have boots on the ground, if they're doing things to push the mission along, we're going to be able to help them. And we have rules to verify that it's a formal group or a 501c3, things like that. If you know anything about the Combined Federal Campaign, which is charity, and I learned about it first when I was in the United States Air Force, they collect money and they distribute it to people on their list of recipients. So I kind of learned that from that. I think it's a brilliant idea, and smaller organizations can receive funds and use the limited amount of resources they have to provide their services to those who need it. With that in mind, I will also plaster a donate button on all of my podcasts, and I'll go back and do it from the previous ones. Feel free to hit that button, and I use $17.50, guys, because if you remember, $17.50 was the amount the average Bernie supporter gave Bernie Sanders. Of course, you can put in your own amount. I would like it if you made it monthly, but we'll take your one-time gift just the same. And you know what's more important than that? Volunteers. Volunteers go a long way. If you don't have money, we'll definitely take your time. And here's something that I always discuss with the folks when I go in the streets, because I talk to our friends on the street all the time. And I hand them my card, and I you can volunteer to help, man. Just because you're living on the streets doesn't mean you can't help. So we went from providing shelter to we're still doing that, but we're just doing it differently. And it's within our original mission plan. We're just pretty much changed tech. You can go to www.cafoundation.net and keep up on current events. There's some film I put on there. But here's the thing. Okay, so we have a nonprofit, and we're raising money for 501c3s and formal organizing groups. We've also created Reverend Ron Ministry podcast, which is in reality a broadcasting network, right? We're creating a progressive propaganda machine, and this is my attempt to do that. And I've also created Ron Collins Photography LLC. So you're like, well, why is he telling me all this? Well, I'm telling you this because Lisa mentioned it earlier, be the change that you want to be. So I've created a propaganda machine. We can produce propaganda. We can broadcast propaganda. And for some of those who want to get involved in helping your neighbor, I have created a nonprofit. And you're like, well, how can I help? Well, I'm also offering internships. So you're like, well, you're building your companies for free? Well, no, right now it's just me and a bunch of insurance policies and whatever I'm doing to move the movement. But this is what I'm asking you to do. So if you go to a 4-year college, you're selling your soul for the next 40 years trying to pay off some loans for some bank. Rich banker can get richer. When really all you want to do is report the news or learn how to do a website or, there's a plethora of things that you can learn how to do. I have 3 businesses. One is a nonprofit charity and 2 are LLCs. With any business, it encompasses all kinds of things like HR, human resource departments, accountants, lawyers, website design, affiliate. I mean, whatever a business consists of, I need those people, and I'm offering internships. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is this: at a minimum, you get experience. Real tangible experience from a business that exists and something you can put on a resume and gain experience and sell it to another employer, if that would be your desire. If you wanted to continue with us and things were moving in both of our favors and we were contributing to the successful growth of what's going on, of our mission, and our mission is clear. It's a human mission. Then that's where I need the attorney and the accountants to kind of do pro bono work for us, because we need to set up a way to compensate our folks, and I would like to do that through shares of the company until we start actually making some money. By the way, we're not making any money. I pay everything out of my own pocket. So if you're thinking this is making me money, you would be wrong. I'm doing it because I believe in my country. I'm doing it because I believe in Americans. I believe right now they're not paying attention. They're being stupid. So we have a broadcasting network. We have a production network. We have a philanthropic, charity, nonprofit. We have everything. We just need to fill the positions, folks. And I don't want to hear any more bullshit about how no one's doing anything for me. This is the door knocking. Hear that? That is somebody at the door, and that's called opportunity. There's a lot of you going to pass this opportunity up. But 1, 2, maybe 5 of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you understand that a little bit of experience will go a long way in this country. A long way. How do I get involved? Well, just send your information over to support at reverendronministries.com. And we'll get the mail, and we'll be in contact. If you want, if you want to be a news writer or online on-air talent, a guest, a co-star, a writer, a producer, an engineer, we need it all, people. We need it all. By the way, we need music, composers. We have. Just think of the experience you can get that a big corporation's not going to give you right now. I guess you're supposed to like, share, and do a lot of stuff. Please do that. And with that, I'd like to say goodnight. I'd like you to consider what I've been talking about, and I really hope to hear from you soon. Our next subject, I don't know. We're going to be producing something about the criminal justice system real soon. We have a couple stories that we got lined up, and the people who want to tell us. We'll be listening real soon. This is Ron from the Reverend Ron Ministries podcast. Good night.
What sacrifice can you give for the future of mankind? This is Reverend Ron Ministries. Do the God you fear know the stuff you hear from those who claim to speak for them? But it's not true. So what do you do?